What's up, YouTube? I'm Spenser Davis with Saturday Road. That's Derek Peterson with Saturday Out West. Today, we are going to be talking about Utah and their regular season win total. We do not have an official number, but we are going to do our best to project what that number will be when it is released later this summer. Utah, very interesting team this year. Probably the favorite in the Pac-12. Am I right on that, Derek?
Yeah, depending on where you go. Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of sports books in Vegas want to put USC or Oregon as the favorite. I wonder if part of that has to do with the fact that betting isn't legal in Utah, so they want to take other people's money. Um, I mean, I've seen Utah at plus 500 to win the Pac-12, which feels
Wow.
like easy money. So,
A lot of value there for sure. One thing with Utah that we should hit real quick is their administration or Kyle Whittingham or whoever scheduled their non-conference this season did a pretty dumb thing and decided they're going to go to Gainesville in week 1, which doesn't sound like any fun at all. So what do you make of that Florida matchup? And I guess, it's a non-conference game. It's not going to impact whether or not they get to Las Vegas at the end of the year, but it could have an impact on, some college football playoff hopes.
yeah, I mean, like one, it is funny that because they scheduled that game, they scheduled a home and home with Florida in 2019. They took BYU off the schedule and replaced BYU with Florida. Like, it's funny that it wasn't scheduled 10 years in advance. So maybe Utah had like a little bit better idea of what kind of team that they were going to have when they played Florida. But like, this is going to be a team that could threaten for the college football playoff. And they have to open the season. They have to open that kind of season in Gainesville against Florida, which is, it might not be funny to them, but it's kind of funny to me that that's the way it worked out. But I also think, if you're going to play Florida, play them early. It's a new head coach down there. And I think I've said this before. I just like playing new coaches early. I think it gives the entrenched team a little bit of an advantage. Florida will have a little bit of a schematic advantage because Utah, won't necessarily know what exactly is coming. They won't have much tape. Florida tape. They'll have Louisiana tape, but they won't have Florida tape. But I think Utah should be the favorite in that game and should win that game. I think Utah could win that game pretty easily. I mean,
it could, but it's a heck of a spot to put yourself in with expectations this high. Week 1, I agree you want to play them early, but get Southern Utah on the schedule first, maybe.
But here are the things Here are the things working in Utah's favor. They have an entrenched coaching staff, a head coach that's been there since 2004, and an offensive and a defensive coordinator that have been there for a while as well. And they have a returning wonderful quarterback. I am very, very high on Cameron Rising next season. I think he's a dark horse Heisman candidate if Utah would kind of put some momentum behind a campaign for him. I think he could get there. He finished 6th last season in ESPN's QBR stat, 6th in the country. It was a very, very good debut season for him. And he didn't even start the year as their number one. Charlie Brewer started as the number one, and then they started 1 and 2, and they made the switch to Rising, and then he led them to Pac-12, the first Pac-12 title in program history, and then to the Rose Bowl. I think he's going to be improved, and I think he's kind of the driving force for them. They have been under Whittingham. They've been like a solid team that develops really well, that doesn't make mistakes, that plays good defense, that plays well at the line of scrimmage. And they were like that team. No, I'm not going to say that. That's disrespectful to them. I was going to compare them to Northwestern, but that's disrespectful to them. They recruit better than Northwestern, but they don't recruit.
They're developing talent
at an elite level. Yeah, they're developing talent. They're
Kentucky,
developing
maybe. Is Kentucky
better
disrespectful?
Players. No, that's a good one. Yeah, Mike Stoops is real. I like Mike Stoops. They have been developing players, and of late, they have also continued to develop players and put players in the NFL. But they've also started recruiting a little bit better. They had a really good recruiting class this last year, or this last cycle. They signed a 4-star linebacker, Lander Barton, that I think is going to be a big piece for them right away. And I think whenever a team has a season like Utah had last year, whenever it's a team like Utah that's not like a traditional college football force that isn't in like a fertile recruiting area, when they have a season like they had last year, there's sort of a tendency to look at them and say, okay, well, that was sort of the peak. Like they'd been climbing to get to this point. They reached the peak That's what they've been working towards. Now there's going to be a little bit of a drop off as some of those pieces start to leave. They've got to replace Devin Lloyd on defense, which is a big deal. They've got to replace a defensive lineman who had, I believe, 70 plus pressures, quarterback pressures last year, according to PFF, which was most in the Pac-12, if I'm remembering correctly, or one of the most. They've got some pieces to replace on defense, but I think, and I've written this a couple of times on my website. I think Utah, specifically in its Rose Bowl performance against Ohio State, the way that it immediately recruited after the fact, and then to get the edge rusher, the linebacker transfer that they got from Florida, I think says a lot about sort of the status of this program moving forward. I think Utah is going to continue to be a player in the Pac-12, continue to be a force in the Pac-12, as opposed to, okay, they won their first Pac-12 title. Now they're going to start to go back down a little bit. I think they're going to maintain. And to pull a high profile transfer from the SEC and get him to Utah, I think says a lot about the way the program is viewed now moving forward. And, I say all this, they've traditionally been a very good defense. And last year they were a very good defense with a very strong running game. Tavion Thomas comes back. He ran for 21 touchdowns last season on the ground. But this season, I think they're going to have, again, a strong running game. We'll see what happens with the defense. I think they're going to have an excellent quarterback. And so they're going to have a really good offense. Like the growth point that I wanted to see from Cam Rising this offseason and into the 22 season was, can he throw the deep ball? And they came out in their spring game and he was looking downfield and he was looking accurate. He was looking very sharp. Now, yes, it's a spring game, very, very small sample size, but I think he is going to continue to improve. And so like FPI gives them 9.2 wins, around a 9-win total. If you look at the schedule, I mean, they got Oregon in Eugene on November 19th. That one will be very tough, especially so considering the way that they beat Oregon in 2 games in 3 weeks last year. I think Oregon will be super amped for that game. But they could go 12-0 and go to the college football playoff. I could see that as a very realistic possibility. They could go 11-1 and go to the college football playoff. Yeah. I feel like worst case scenario for this team is like they finish second in the Pac-12 South.
Yeah, let's break down the schedule a little bit. So whenever you're looking at a team that you think has a chance to go to a conference title, I always like to look at how many like automatic wins I think are on their schedule. Of course, the game still has to be played, but like, how many wins are you probably going to win? What is your floor? And then let's talk about the tough games. And Utah has a really high floor. I've got 8 games here that are either an auto win or a probable win for Utah. And then the remaining 4, you've got at Florida, at UCLA, versus USC, and at Oregon. I mean, all 4 of those Utah could lose, but at least for the Pac-12 teams, like Utah's been beating those 3 teams like a drum in recent memory, at least, right? I mean, there may be a few exceptions in there, but like for the most part, for the last couple of years, Utah has been very successful in those types of games, and it's gotten them, to go pretty far. The Florida game is a hang up for me as far as, are they going to make the college football playoff? Because like, here's the thing, like Florida could win that game and still go 6-6. It's just brutal. I mean, and if Utah goes 11-1, or 12-1 with a Pac-12 title, but they lose at a Florida team that's barely bowl eligible, they're probably not going to the playoff. Just as a reality of the situation. I mean, they'll certainly be in the mix. They'll be in the top 6. But it's an uphill battle.
If Florida's a 6-6 team, Utah's not losing to that team. Like if Florida's an 8-win team,
man, you got to go.
Sure,
it'll
be
about
interesting.
The travel, the fans. I mean, that's going to be.
It's week 1. Like travel's not a big deal. It's week 1. They're going to be ready to play. They're I don't like. We talk about, you can talk about expectations with a team. They went through an unspeakably difficult season last year with, for anybody that's not familiar, they lost 2 members of their football team in the span of 10 months last year. Like they went through a very, very difficult season last year. And they won a Pac-12 title. and they came, closer together as a team. And, I think that this is just a team that handles its business. It's going to be ready to go. They are tight. They are together. They are well led. They are well coached. I don't think, having to travel to Gainesville, not to like discredit what you're saying. I don't think having to travel to Gainesville in week 1 and play a Florida team that wasn't great last year and has a new coach, it's going to be a marquee game because it's Florida and it's Utah. But if Utah wins that game,
Bowl.
I know if Utah wins that game by 10 points, I wouldn't be surprised. The game that I think a lot of people are going to circle and say, well, this might be interesting for them is October 27th at Washington State. They play USC the game prior, but not the week prior. They've got a bye week after the USC game on October 15th. And then they play Washington State in Pullman on a Thursday night. I think that is going to be like a popular
that's kind of trap game,
trap pick for Utah, but they're coming off a bye. We'll see. I mean, things get weird in Pullman on a Thursday night. I think Oregon State's going to be really good. And so to play them October 1st, sandwiched between road games against Arizona State and UCLA, I think Arizona State's going to have a good defense. UCLA is going to have a really good run game. It'll be earlier in their schedule, so they shouldn't be tired. They shouldn't be kind of beat up. But I think Oregon State is going to have probably the best offensive line in the conference, and that could be a tough game for them. It's at home, but I think Oregon State is a significant threat in the Pac-12 North. And that would be a game that I would circle as not a gimme, not a probable, but definitely a game that you want to be concerned about.
Okay, let's get out of here with a projection here. So we're saying, let's say 9.5 wins. You going over or under?
Yeah, I would say 11 wins.
Okay. I'm at 10.
I think 11. I think they threaten for the college football playoff.
Awesome.
I really like this team. I really like Cam Rising.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys for watching and for sticking with us here. And you guys have a great week.